Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today I want to chat with you about some books by Asian authors that I've read in the last year and that I really enjoyed. I did videos like this in the past and I will link those down below if you want to check those out as well. As it is Asian and Pacific Islander month, I thought this would be a great time to update my list and to give you some book recommendations. I have ordered these by genre, so I think it will be easiest for you. If you're not interested in a particular genre, you can use the chapters to jump over those parts. But without further ado, let's get into my book recommendations for books by Asian authors that I've read and loved in the last year. The first book I wanted to mention was kind of a surprise. I got this book from the library and did a little try chapter with it in a previous video last year. And this one I was not expecting to love as much as I did, as it is a YA fantasy with a pretty strong romantic plot. Now, this is The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axie. In this one, we follow a girl who sacrifices herself in place of the lover of his brother, who was meant to be sacrificed to a sea god. And the problem is that even though people have been sacrificed, like specifically brides have been sacrificed to this sea god, the sea god doesn't really seem to care about his people. He doesn't really seem to help his people out. And so our main character plunges into the water to go to the sea god's kind of realm and figure out what is going on. And as I said, also save her brother's lover. And in this one, we do have quite a bit of a romantic subplot, and I really enjoyed it. I do enjoy romances where a human girl or woman and a magical being that is like very old do kind of have feelings for each other or develop feelings for each other because they're just from like such different worlds, but this like eternal being can't help but see the beauty of humanity in this like girl or woman. So this one worked really well for me, but you also have this like fantasy element of this magical realm, as well as the mystery element of what is going on in this realm. Why is the sea god not helping his people anymore? And I really enjoyed this one, and if you're open to YA fantasy, I would highly recommend. The next book is a short story collection. It is called The Tangleroot Palace by Marjorie. This is a short story collection that is very much fantasy as well, and I had an overall good time with this collection. Obviously, with short stories, there will be ones you love more and maybe some you love less. I also already knew one of the stories in a collection because it was part of another anthology that I had read before, and I even loved it more on the reread, so that one definitely grew on me as well. And I think Marjorie is just a very great storyteller, so I would highly recommend you check this out. I think this one is very much under the radar, but I had a really good time with the collection. Next up, we have one of my favorite fantasy series of all time, and that is the Radiant Emperor duology. And we start with She Who Became the Sun, and the conclusion is called He Who Drowned the World by Shelley Chen. This is a collection that has received quite a lot of hype and buzz, so I'm probably not telling you anything new, but in this story we follow a young girl who is destined to be nothing, while her brother is destined to achieve greatness. However, the brother dies and our main character steps into his shoes, pretending to be a boy and joining up with a kind of like a cloister or some kind of like thing where she gets an education in place of her brother, and then moves up in the world with her very ruthless ambition. And I just love the series so much. This is just full of like morally gray characters that are ruthless, that are cunning, that are capable, that are not nice people. Like, I do not want to meet any of these characters in person, but I loved reading about them, and I think this one has so much like emotional depth there is so much like tragic stuff going on, and especially with like one particular character that I cared for like a ton, who is a eunuch. His story is so incredibly heartbreaking, and yeah, this just gave me all the emotions. I think it's an absolute masterpiece, and I can't wait to see what Shelley Parker-Chan writes next. And then with the fantasy category, I just want to quickly mention two series that I continued on and that I absolutely love and would highly recommend. The first one being a comic series called Monstress. So in the last year I read volume 8, very excited to read volume 9 this year. This is my favorite comic book series that I'm following, and it's basically the only one I'm following. And yeah, it's just fantastic. This has the most stunning, beautiful art by Takeda, who also did the cover for the Tangleroot Palace, so that is also absolutely stunning. And the story is written by Marjorie as well, which I already mentioned with the Tangleroot Palace. In Monstress, we follow a woman called Micah Halfwolf, who is a Arcanic, and in this world there are Arcanics and humans, and the humans kind of hunt the Arcanics. There is a perpetual war between the two because the humans have witches and their powers rely on killing the Arcanics basically. And so there is a ton of like very dark stuff happening in this series. No one's really safe. You have that war storyline, you have like kidnapped children that are used for like dark magic, and yeah, it's just, it is a lot. It's definitely a lot. It's very violent. But what I love about this series is that you have women in practically all of the important like powerful positions in this world. There is a lot of like lesbian love and yeah, just sapphic love in general, and I love this series so much. It is so good, and just seeing the art is amazing. Micah also has this old god living inside of her, and so they have like a very strained relationship with each other as well. The other series is the Singing Hills cycle, and I finally continued on with that by reading the third book called Into the Riverlands. This is by Nghi, and Nghi is one of my favorite authors, so I definitely had to continue on with this series now. And in this third installment, we again follow a person called Nghi. They go around and collect stories, and they have this companion creature that is kind of like a bird called Almost Brilliant, and she has like a perfect memory, so whenever someone tells them a story, Almost Brilliant will remember it, and so she can then write it down and take it to this monastery where the stories are collected. And in the Riverlands, this is a region that is very much known for martial arts, so this third installment definitely deals a lot with this idea of martial arts and different like teachers, different styles, and then also with the general idea of stories and the way that stories can never really be the truth, because stories have to have a certain format, meet certain plot points, stuff like that. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one, and the series overall is fantastic. If you're looking for some very like fairy tale-esque novellas, I would highly recommend the Singing Hills cycle. Next, we're moving right along to mystery and horror, and for this one I have two books to recommend. The first one is more of a mystery kind of thriller book, and that is Happiness Falls by Angie Kim. This is the second book by this author I've read, and while I didn't love it quite as much as the author's first book, I still found it like a very interesting and unique take on these mystery thrillery stories. In this one we have a family with 3 children. The mother, I think, is Asian and the father is white, if I remember correctly, and they have a pair of twins who are now college age, but because of the pandemic they're currently staying at home. And then they have a younger son who has disabilities and is on the autism spectrum, and the father is the main caretaker while the mother works full-time. And one day, on the usual morning walk that the father does with the youngest son, the father disappears. The youngest son comes home alone and very much in an agitated state, and it is unclear what has happened. The police gets involved, but the youngest son, because of his like neurodivergency, does not speak, and so he can't tell the people around him what has happened. The story is told from the perspective of the daughter, and she is kind of figuring out what is going on with her family, with her father, and with this police investigation. And the only thing I didn't really love is the fact that we're only in the daughter's head. I would have enjoyed it, I think, even more if we would have gotten multiple POVs in this case, because sometimes I found the daughter's POV to be a little bit limited. But because of the way the story is told, it absolutely makes sense. And what I enjoyed about this one is that it also includes a lot of like psychological concepts that explain why in these situations our brains don't always like function perfectly and we make wrong assumptions and stuff like that. And I really like this like little like scientific snippets to explain how this all works and why people are behaving the way they are, because sometimes it can get like really frustrating in a thriller when you're like, why are the people doing this right now? And so she tried to explain that a little bit more. And the second one, again, is a short story collection, and this one is more horror, specifically like body horror, and that is Cursed Bunny by Bora Chung. This is a collection that I've read quite a while ago, so my memory isn't like really flawless on it, but I remember having a good time with it and overall liking these stories, even though liking them is a bit of a stretch because, as I said, like the body horror is quite gross in this one, but I still felt it had a lot to say, especially about gender, and like, yeah, it was a unique and interesting experience. I don't read like a ton of body horror, so this was definitely a little bit outside of my comfort zone, and I would recommend if you are at all interested in horror collections like this. Last but not least, we're going to move on to literary fiction, where technically I only have one book to recommend to you, but I'm gonna sneak in something else at the end just because I can. So the one book I want to recommend to you is The Sea Elephants by Shastri Akella. This one is a kind of, inspired by the life of the author, and we follow a young man in India who is gay. I think this is set in the 90s, and it is all about how he navigates his world where it's not really accepted that he's gay. His father does not accept him at all, and we see him kind of looking for his way in life, and on this journey he also ends up joining kind of like a circus troupe. So yeah, it has like very interesting tropes. Overall, it is a very sad and heartbreaking story, but it does have moments of joy as well, and it does have like some hopefulness as well. So it's not all tragic, but a lot of the stuff that is happening in this book is quite heavy, so I definitely want to mention that. Because like in India in the 90s, being gay just was not an easy thing, and I really liked this one. I listened to it on audio and I think it was done really well, and it was just a very interesting perspective to take, and I also just loved the way that this character managed to find his people in this book. That was like really great. So last but not least, I want to sneak in one thing here, and that is one of my favorite authors, Celeste Ng. And I would recommend all of her books. Absolutely stunning, amazing. She can do no wrong. I'm waiting for her next book. Like, I can't wait. However, I did reread her first novel, Everything I Never Told You, a couple of months ago, and it was just fantastic. I started the year off with this book to have a banger right at the start of the year, and it was just as amazing as when I read it the first time. In this one, we are following again a family where we have children, and the parents, I think, are also like one parent is Asian and one parent is white. I think with this one it was like the other way around. I think the mother is white and the father is Asian in this one, and it starts out with one of the daughters going missing, and then within the first chapter being found dead in the lake, and it's all about like why, like how did she end up there. And it's just such a beautiful story where I wouldn't say it's like a mystery in the forefront. It's more about this family, about the pressures that the parents project onto their children, and it's very, very beautiful. I love this book so much. And then also I am one episode away from finishing the TV show Little Fires Everywhere, which is also based on a book by Celeste Ng, and I'm also really loving this TV show. In this one, we're looking at two families. One is rich, one is seemingly poor, and how they get tangled up together because the poor family, which is basically a single mom and her daughter, they rent a house from the rich family, but then the children start to become friends and it gets all quite entangled, and then shit gets crazy. And yeah, I'm really loving the show. It has been quite a while since I've read the book, so I'm not quite sure how close the plot of the show is to the book. There's definitely stuff that is happening the same way, but I couldn't like tell you in the details how close it is. However, I think the show does a really, really good job of transporting the overall story. So if you want something to watch as well, then here you go, a little recommendation on the side. So that's it for my recommendations and the books that I have loved by Asian authors in the last couple of months. I would love to hear in the comments down below what was your favorite book by an Asian author you've read recently, because I definitely have to step up my game a little bit. I realized in the last 12 months I haven't really read a lot of books by Asian authors, which has mainly to do with my goal of reading down my physical TBR, which unfortunately is mostly like white authors, because these books have just been collecting for years and years and years. So yeah, I have to like do better in the next 12 months so I can give you amazing recommendations again in a year. So I'll talk to you soon. Leave a like and a nice comment. I always really appreciate those, and subscribe if you don't want to miss my next videos. Bye!